Hello guys, this is Oroth and a warm welcome back to my channel. In this video we're gonna take a look at a brand new Demon Hunter build that I believe will be the best and strongest build going forward, both in dungeons and open world farming. And before we begin, I have to say something about the previous patch. In that patch we received a new essence called Pain Sower, and it has been super strong, just as predicted, both in PvE and in PvP. But in this patch they have nerfed the essence. In PvE it's still very viable. I'm not so sure about PvP anymore, but a lot of people are telling me now that it's a lot worse. But what's also has always been the problem using a strafe build is that you lose mobility whenever you use the skill. And with this new build I'm going to show you here, we're getting rid of this problem, and therefore this build will be a staple for Demon Hunters going forward. At least this is what I believe. So let us first take a look at the skills I'm using. In the primary slot I'm using crossbow shot. In the first skill slot I use sentry. In the second skill slot I use strafe. In the third skill slot I use vengeance. And in the fourth and final skill slot I use knife trap. So let us continue and look at the essences. In the helmet slot I'm using bad deal, which is the new helmet essence. And what it says is that Sentry now summons focused hatred that follows you and automatically attacks nearby enemies. So now if I use the Sentry, I will have this bat following me. And it also has very good attack speed. If you compare this with a wizard summon that looks similar, that is also a type of bird that follows you, this one is a lot stronger because the attack speed is higher. And of course you can see it also looks a lot cooler, which also matters a lot. If we look on the next slot, it's a chest piece and it's also a new essence. It's called Drowning Embrace. And what it says is that during vengeance, your sentry and knife trap summons fire-piercing beams dealing damage. So now, if I use the sentry and then I use vengeance, you can see that the sentry is also shooting these piercing beams on the target. And also with very high attack speed, so this vengeance essence is super strong. In the shoulder slot, I use Forest Scream, and what it says is that knife trap cooldown is decreased by 18.6%. And here I choose this one because I want to have the knife trap available as often as possible. I don't need more damage, but if you are a little bit lower DPS, maybe you want to opt for a little bit more damage, and in that case you can definitely go for the new shoulder slot here. The new shoulder essence here called Vigilant Spolders. And what it says is that knife trap marks enemies for 3 seconds, and sentry damage against marked enemies is increased by 57%. So this is a huge buff, and I can also recommend that one. In the pant slot I use Sailor's Pins, and what it says is that knife trap now summons focused discipline that follows you and fires blades at nearby enemies. And this is also a new essence, and now my knife trap turns into a summon, and you can see there it's like a shuriken following me, and it will also shoot shurikens on the target. And this also works together with the new chest essence that I just showed. So now if I summon all my summons and then use vengeance, you can see that I deal a lot of damage and a lot of attacks at once. So a very, very strong build in terms of damage output. If we look in the next slot, which is the first main head slot, I use Vigilance. And what it says is that Sentry also launches a rocket every 2 attacks, dealing additional damage. And here I am using the strafe summons, and there is another essence called Turmoil, which will let the strafe summons shoot these rockets. But the strafe summon is stationary, while now I can bring the Sentry with me. So now I can also bring with me this effect that shoots rockets from the first main hand slot. So it's a neat addition. In the first offhand slot I use One's Own Fusillade, and what it says is that Sentry attacks mark enemies, increasing the damage you deal to the target by 15.2%. So yeah, I don't really need the damage. It's a nice little addition, but yeah, you can try something else out in this slot as well. It's not a super important essence. In the second main hand slot I use Buzzard on the Wing, and what it says is that during strafe, your movement speed is increased by 30%. And this is very, very good for this build, because now whenever I put down a strafe summon, you can see me now running, and whenever I put down a strafe summon, I increase my movement speed by 30%. And yeah, this will basically be up all the time. So very good both for dungeons and open world farming, of course. If we look in the second offense slot, I use fallow farm, as you already figured out probably, and this is that my strafe now turns into these summons instead. So yeah, this is the package I'm using in terms of essences. Let us also take a quick look at the set pieces. First of all, I'm using 4 pieces of V2. First of all, because I want to prolong the duration of Vengeance, and I also want to prolong the duration of some legendary gem effects. And what we can also see here is that whenever I use a strafe summon, I will activate V2 on myself. But what's also good is that whenever I use Vengeance, I will activate V2 on the summons, except for the strafe summon. And if I summon another knife trap here during Vengeance, so if I use the Vengeance first and then summon a knife trap, it will immediately get V2 triggered by the active Vengeance. So very, very good synergies between the essences in this build. And of course also with the set here. And the other set I'm using is 4 pieces of Shepherd. It's to increase the damage done by my summons and also to increase my critical hit chance, which is of course always very good to do. We also have to look at the legendary gems. I use 2 1-star gems, and it's Freedom and Devotion and Berserker's Eye. I use some 2-star gems. There I use Mother's Lament, Pain Clasp, and Bloody Reach. And finally I use Void Spark, Blood-Soaked Jade, and Roiling Consequence as 5-star gems. And I would probably say that Freedom and Devotion here is super important. You can switch out Bloody Reach perhaps, because sometimes maybe you like to fight a little bit closer to the target. You can also switch out Void Spark. I don't need the extra damage, so Void Spark is a good tool to deal damage to a lot of enemies in a short period of time. But yeah, you can also put in Echoing Shade here, or Bottled Hope, or something else. So feel free to play around a little bit with some of these gems. But yeah, this is the basic setup of the build. I can also mention here that I use the Brawler Paragon. So let's go here and take a look. I use the old Warden effects. And this I do mainly because I have Rugged and Combat Expertise, which together will increase my size by 8%. And the bigger I am, the higher movement speed I get. And this is also the reason, if we go here to my Warband, we can see here that I'm in the Protect room, and that's because I have this remnant here that's called Shepherd's Burden that also increases my size. So always opt for as much size as possible when you are doing open world farming or most dungeons. Finally, I just want to mention briefly as well that I use Brood Talon here as a familiar, and I do it for the Lingering Wounds passive skill. I have told you guys this many times before in previous videos, but I want to tell any new viewers that this is a very, very strong passive skill in PvE. It's the strongest in the game, and if you manage to get a Brood Talon or a Skitterwicht with insight higher than 170, you can also increase the potency of this passive skill. So a very solid option. So now we have looked at the setup, and let us now venture out and do a little bit of open world farming and a little bit of dungeons, so I can show you how the build performs live, and also tell you why it's so efficient and how to use your skills, etc. So let's move on. So we're gonna begin here with some open world farming, so let's get going. And now you will be able to see, I'm gonna use Strafe Summon here to increase my speed. Now, if you have ever played the Strafe with the Pain Sower in open world, you know that whenever you use Strafe, you will lose a little bit of movement speed. But now, with this setup, we can continuously keep on running. So no skill has any animation that stops us. So whichever skill we use, we can just keep running. And what's also good about it is that we have some decent range, which means that we don't have to run up to each pack if we can kill them from afar. So now, for example, if we go into a bigger room like this, we can take a shorter route and still manage to kill everything. So when I am doing this spot, for example, together with some Crusaders, I often manage to outrun them because I can always take a shorter route. At the same time, there are of course maybe other classes that has the same abilities that also have some more strong dash skills. So I would still not rank the Demon Hunter among the best when it comes to open world farming like this. But previously it has been in a quite bad spot, and with this new patch here we can finally start to farm super fast also with Demon Hunters in open world. So let us also try out the dungeon. Here we are in Forgotten Tower. And what I always do, as soon as I enter dungeon, I will put down a strafe summon immediately to increase my movement speed. So let's do so, and then we keep running here. And then I want to kill this off as fast as possible. I'm not using all of the summons because I want to be able to use as much damage as possible when I reach this boss. And now I do it solo, and it's a little bit hard to be able to kill it within one vengeance buff from the start, but this will not be an issue whenever I go with the group. And I chose to highlight the build in this dungeon because here you will be able to see how crazy it is in terms of AoE damage. So if I run through the mobs like this, everything will die. I can put down a strafe summon somewhere in a corner to kill things off, to keep running, and I never have to stop. The only downside is when the vengeance is not up, then I will lose a little bit of damage. And that's why you could maybe opt for a maximum cooldown reduction. I have a lot of summon damage on my set pieces, but maybe I could do some downgrades in the damage to have a little bit more uptime of vengeance by reducing the cooldown further. So here we are now gonna attack the boss, and let's see if we can do it in one phase. Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, it was not an issue. So I have to say that this build performs super well. You can see now that what I love about it is that I can run around and use the skills. There is no animation time like I showed you before in open world, and this is so efficient in dungeons. So I can highly recommend it, and I hope that you like it and want to try it out. And as a tip, if it's possible, I would also bring maybe a Crusader into the party, because if you have a Crusader with Fire Banner, your summons will be crazy strong. You will kill everything in milliseconds. And also they have buffed the Crusader offhand that buffs the movement speed of the party when using Banner even further in this patch. It used to be 45%, now it's 60%. So if you compose your team carefully, you will be able to run and finish the dungeons super fast. And also remember, as I explained to you earlier, it's very important to use a brawler and to use your protector warband room, so that everyone in the party is as big as possible, so that you can all run together within the fire banner. So yeah, these are some other takeaways before we say goodbye. But I hope that you like this build and that you like this video. And if you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And wherever you are, I of course want to wish you a very nice day or a very nice evening. And to all of my clan members in Nyx, I would also like to say Voruk Nyx Sholak Sol. So bye bye.